I'm writing this because I need to get it off my chest and maybe someone out there can relate or offer some advice. My name is Jake, and I've been married to my wife, Sarah, for 6 years. We had what I thought was a solid relationship, built on trust, love, and a shared life that had its ups and downs like any marriage. But lately, things have felt off. I first noticed the changes about a year ago. Sarah started acting differently, more secretive, often avoiding eye contact when I brought up certain topics. One thing in particular kept coming up, her cousin Matt. It was strange. Every time I tried to talk about him, she would skillfully change the subject. "Oh, did you see that new restaurant opened? We should go," she'd say, completely dodging the question. At first, I brushed it off. After all, families can be complicated, and maybe she just didn't want to get into it. But then there were the late nights. She'd come home hours after she said she would with the same excuse, work. "You know how it is, Jake. Things are crazy at the office." It didn't take long for me to start feeling uneasy. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I trusted her, I really did. But the gut feeling was nagging at me like a persistent itch I couldn't scratch. One Friday, everything changed. I was out running some errands and decided to drop by Sarah's office to surprise her with lunch. I had a cute little picnic planned, her favorite sandwiches, chips, and some of that fancy sparkling water she loves. When I arrived, her office was empty. The lights were off and the door was locked. I thought maybe she'd stepped out for a quick meeting or something, so I waited outside for a while. But then, after a few minutes, I saw something that made my heart drop. There he was, Matt, leaning casually against the wall outside the building, looking like he owned the place. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I had seen pictures of him before, but seeing him in the flesh felt different. He was tall, with a charming smile that made him look like he just stepped off a magazine cover. I was about to turn and leave when I noticed Sarah walking out, laughing with her hand on his arm. The laughter rang in my ears like a death knell. My heart raced as they sauntered towards his car. I felt a mix of confusion and anger boiling up inside me. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I thought she was at work, yet here she was, openly flirting with this guy. I stood frozen for a moment, unable to process it all, and then I saw them lean in closer. It was like a punch to the gut when I realized they were about to kiss. That was the moment everything shifted. My entire world started to unravel. I didn't know what to do. Should I confront them? Should I just drive away and pretend I hadn't seen anything? But the sight of them together, the way she was looking at him, it all felt like a betrayal of the highest order. I couldn't let it go without saying something. As they kissed, I felt my blood boil and my heart shatter. I couldn't stand there anymore. I turned on my heel and walked back to my car, fighting back tears and a wave of emotions that threatened to consume me. I took a deep breath and tried to steady myself, but it didn't help. The image of Sarah, my wife, with him, burned into my mind. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't know what I would say or how I would react when I did. When I got home, I paced the living room trying to gather my thoughts. My heart raced as I waited for her to come back. I was seething with anger, betrayal, and a sadness I couldn't quite articulate. The woman I had loved, the person I thought I knew, was hiding something massive from me. I felt sick to my stomach just thinking about it. Finally, Sarah walked through the door, her face lighting up as she saw me. "Hey babe, you're home early," she chirped, completely oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I looked at her, trying to gauge her expression, searching for any hint of guilt. But all I saw was that same carefree smile that felt like a knife in my gut. "Yeah, I thought I'd surprise you with lunch," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Saw you earlier." Her smile faltered for a brief moment before she recovered. "Saw me? Where?" "Outside your office with Matt." Her eyes widened in shock, and for a split second I thought I saw genuine fear in her expression, but then she put on her poker face. "Oh, Jake, you don't understand. It's not what you think." I couldn't hold back anymore. "Not what I think, because it looked like you were having a pretty good time sharing a kiss with your cousin." Now she was scrambling for words. "It was just a friendly goodbye. We were just what? Just being friends." "I don't care what excuse you're about to pull from your sleeve, Sarah. I saw what I saw, and it wasn't friendly." The confrontation spiraled into chaos. She yelled, I yelled, and for a moment it felt like the world was falling apart around us. I wanted to hear her excuses, but deep down, I felt the truth clawing its way to the surface. Sarah was caught in a lie, and I was about to learn just how deep this deception ran. Everything I thought I knew about my wife began to shatter like glass. I was left standing there, my heart racing, trying to piece together the fragments of a life I thought was real. The anger surged, but so did the sadness. I felt lost, confused, and betrayed. What was I going to do next? I had to think clearly, but all I could feel was the weight of her lies pressing down on me. After that explosive confrontation, I was left reeling. Sarah's pathetic excuses echoed in my mind, but none of them held water. Just a friendly goodbye. I could barely wrap my head around it. I knew in my gut that this wasn't a simple misunderstanding. The way she had looked at Matt, how she had laughed with him, it was all too intimate, too familiar for it to be just a cousinly connection. After she stormed off to the bedroom, I stood there in the living room, feeling utterly lost. I didn't want to believe that the woman I loved had been unfaithful to me. But the truth was clear, and it stung like 1,000 needles. I had no idea what to do next. Should I confront her again? Should I find Matt and demand answers? The anger inside me was bubbling, but I needed to calm down and think rationally. The first thing I did was reach for my phone. I needed to gather more evidence, something concrete that would force Sarah to come clean. I decided to do some digging. I had never been the type to snoop, but these were unprecedented times. I opened her social media accounts and scrolled through her messages. I knew her password, and lurking behind the screen felt like an invasion of privacy, but I was desperate for answers. What I found was worse than I could have imagined. Texts between Sarah and Matt that played out like a twisted soap opera. They were flirty, filled with inside jokes that I had never been privy to, and the worst part, explicit texts that detailed their meetups when she claimed to be at work late. My heart sank further into my stomach as I read messages like, "Can't wait to feel you again," and "Last night was amazing." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Every word was a dagger, twisting deeper and deeper. I couldn't just sit back and let this happen. I needed a plan, a way to confront Sarah that wouldn't give her the chance to wriggle out of it. I decided I wouldn't confront her right away. I needed to let the evidence marinate a bit. I would wait for the right moment to strike, to catch her off guard so she couldn't spin her lies. The next day felt like an eternity. I spent the morning formulating my plan. I told Sarah that I had to go to work early, which wasn't a lie. I did have some work to catch up on. But in reality, I was just buying time. I needed to clear my head and think about how I wanted to execute my revenge. I felt a dark thrill at the thought of bringing the truth to light, of forcing her to confront her lies. When I returned home later that evening, she had prepared dinner, trying her best to act normal. She had even gone as far as to dress up, wearing that gorgeous blue dress I loved. It made my stomach churn. I could see the effort she was putting in, but I wasn't buying it. I could feel her nervousness beneath the surface. "Hey babe, how was your day?" she asked, her voice a bright facade that I could see right through. "Fine," I replied curtly, taking a seat at the table. I couldn't show her that I was still reeling from the discovery. As we ate, I watched her carefully. She was animated, talking about her day at work, but I was not listening. I was preoccupied with my own thoughts and my plan. The tension in the air was palpable, and I could see her glancing at me, her smile faltering as she sensed my detachment. "Jake, is everything okay?" she finally asked, her bright tone faltering. "Yeah, why do you ask?" I replied, not bothering to hide my irritation. "You just seem different," she said, her brow furrowing in concern. I wanted to scream, to tell her I knew everything, but I held back. I had to keep my cool. "I'm just tired," I said. After dinner, Sarah suggested we watch a movie together. I agreed, knowing it was part of her attempt to keep the peace. As we settled on the couch, I glanced at her, feeling a mix of anger and pity. The woman sitting next to me wasn't the wife I thought I knew. She was a stranger, someone who had deceived me for who knows how long. I pretended to watch the movie while my mind ran wild with thoughts of revenge. I wanted her to feel the same betrayal I felt, to understand the hurt she had caused. I decided I would confront her the next evening, just before she went to meet Matt. I would catch her in the act, and then I would let the truth unravel before her eyes. That night after Sarah fell asleep next to me, I lay awake for hours plotting my next move. I felt a strange sense of empowerment begin to build within me. This was my chance to take control, to turn the tables on her deception. I'd make sure she understood the consequences of her actions. The following day dragged on with an unbearable slowness. I couldn't focus on work. My mind kept replaying the scene of her with Matt, the betrayal cutting like a knife. I spent the day gathering everything I needed for my plan. I knew I had to be strategic. I couldn't let her catch on to what I was doing. As evening approached, I put my plan into motion. I told Sarah I would be working late again. She didn't bat an eye. I was sure she thought I was still oblivious. I watched her get ready with a new sense of resolve. She slipped into her outfit, applying makeup with a confidence that disgusted me. She looked beautiful, but tonight she would find out just how ugly her lies really were. After she left for what she claimed was a girls' night out, I waited for about an hour before I grabbed my keys and headed out, following her. I felt a mix of fear and excitement. I was about to confront the truth, and nothing could prepare me for what I was about to witness. This was the moment I had been waiting for, and I was determined to see it through to the end. I drove through the city with purpose, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew my destination, the bar where Sarah had told me she'd be meeting the girls. It felt surreal, like I was a character in a film, and the stakes couldn't be higher. I couldn't shake the feeling that my entire life was riding on this moment. As I pulled into the parking lot, I took a deep breath and parked my car in a spot that allowed me to see the entrance without being too obvious. I needed to keep my cool. I reminded myself of the evidence I had gathered, text messages that would shatter her facade, and I felt a sense of grim determination. I wouldn't let her charm or tears sway me tonight. I was here for the truth. After what felt like an eternity of waiting, I finally spotted her. Sarah emerged from the bar, chatting and laughing with a couple of friends, women I recognized from our neighborhood who occasionally visited. But what hit me like a punch to the gut was the way she was leaning into the conversation, her laughter genuine and carefree, completely devoid of the tension that had hung in our home for days. But then I saw him. Matt was there too, leaning casually against the bar with a drink in hand, his arms slung over the back of the stool as if he owned the place. I felt a surge of anger, the kind that burns hot and bright. There she was, my wife, blissfully unaware I was watching as she flirted with the very man who had stolen her affections. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but from the way they were standing close, their body language spoke volumes. They shared inside jokes, and I could see her hand lightly brushing against his arm, an innocent gesture that felt anything but. A wave of nausea washed over me, and I had to remind myself to breathe. I was about to confront them, to expose the truth, and I had to be ready for whatever would follow. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, Sarah and her friends began to move toward the exit. I quickly stepped out of my hiding spot, trying to keep my composure, and approached them just as they stepped outside. I felt the adrenaline surge through my veins, my heart racing as I called out, "Sarah!" She turned, her eyes widening in shock as they all froze. Her friends looked between us, sensing the tension in the air. I could see the color drain from her face, and for a moment I relished the look of fear that crossed her features. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice shaky. "I could ask you the same thing," I said, my voice steady though my heart was racing. "I thought you were out with your girlfriends." She opened her mouth, probably ready to spew some false excuse, but I cut her off. "I saw you, Sarah, I saw you with him." I pointed a finger at Matt, who stood there looking unfazed, a smirk on his face as if he found this whole thing amusing. "Jake, please, it's not what you think," Sarah exclaimed, her facade cracking. The desperation in her voice was palpable, and for a moment I felt a flicker of pity, but I quickly snuffed it out. "Not what I think," I scoffed. "You're here with him, looking like you're having the time of your life while I'm at home waiting for you. How naive do you think I am?" Matt stepped forward, clearly amused by the situation. "Come on, man, it's not a big deal, we're just having fun. You should lighten up." A rush of anger surged through me, and I couldn't help but direct it toward him. "Stay out of this, this is between me and my wife." I shot him a glare that seemed to momentarily wipe the smirk off his face. "Jake, please," Sarah begged, taking a step closer. It was just a friendly hangout, I swear. You know how we are, we were just catching up. Catching up. I laughed bitterly, the hurt boiling over. Is that what you call it? Because from where I was standing it looked a hell of a lot more than that. Her friends shifted uncomfortably, clearly caught in the crossfire. I could see the embarrassment washing over Sarah. She was desperate now, her eyes darting between me and Matt, searching for a way out. Just tell me the truth, Sarah. How long has this been going on? I demanded, my voice low but cutting. Nothing happened, I swear it, she pleaded, her voice rising in pitch. We just kissed once, that's all. It was a mistake. Just kissed. I couldn't help the bitterness that crept into my tone. You think that makes it okay? You've been lying to me for months. This is so much more than a mistake. At that moment, I saw a flicker of guilt pass over her face, but it was quickly replaced by defiance. You don't understand, I was lonely. You've been so wrapped up in your work, I felt like I was living with a stranger. That hit me hard. So you decided to seek comfort in the arms of another man. Jake, I didn't mean to hurt you, I just needed someone, she said, her voice softening. But I could see through her words. She was trying to manipulate the situation, to play the victim card. It fueled my anger more. Someone, I echoed, feeling the heat rise in my chest. You've been sleeping with him while I've been at home, believing everything was fine. You've made a choice, Sarah. You could have come to me, but instead you chose betrayal. Her eyes glistened with tears, and for a moment I almost felt bad for her. But then I remembered the messages, the lies, and the way she had laughed with him just hours before. No, she had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. Do you love him? I asked, the question hanging heavy in the air. She hesitated for a moment, the silence growing deafening. No, I love you, Jake, I don't love him. Then why were you there with him tonight? Because I was confused, I didn't mean for things to go this far. I shook my head, disbelief washing over me. You can't even tell the truth, can you? The weight of her betrayal felt like a crushing force, and I took a step back, trying to process everything. I wanted to scream, to shake her until she understood the pain she had caused. I wanted to throw every word of hurt back at her, but instead I simply felt empty. I can't do this anymore, Sarah, I finally said, my voice steady. You've made your choice, and I need to think about what that means for us. She reached for me, but I stepped back, unwilling to let her touch me. Don't. Just don't. I turned away, leaving her standing there with her friends and Matt, the very people who had helped her shatter our marriage. As I walked away, I could hear her crying, but I didn't turn back. I had to keep moving forward, even if the path was shrouded in uncertainty. I got into my car, the reality of what had just happened crashing over me like a tidal wave. My heart felt heavy, but there was also a strange sense of relief. I had finally confronted the truth, and no matter how painful it was a step toward reclaiming my life. I drove home in silence, my mind racing with thoughts of what would come next and how I would rebuild from the ashes of my shattered trust. The drive home was a blur. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions, anger, sadness, disbelief. I felt like I was in a surreal nightmare where nothing made sense anymore. Just hours earlier, I had been a husband, someone who thought he had a solid relationship, and now I was a man grappling with betrayal. When I got home, the silence was deafening. The house felt empty, almost foreign, and I couldn't shake the feeling that every corner was a reminder of what had just shattered. I wandered through the living room, my eyes landing on the family photos that adorned the walls. There we were, smiling, happy, full of love. I felt a wave of nausea at the sight of them. Those moments felt tainted now, like a cruel joke. I collapsed onto the couch, staring blankly at the wall. The memories flooded back, our wedding day, the laughter we shared, the dreams we built together. And now it all felt like a facade, an illusion that had been shattered by her lies. I felt lost in a sea of confusion and hurt. How could I have been so blind? How could I have trusted her so completely? My phone buzzed, the sound cutting through the silence. It was a text from Sarah. Jake, please let's talk. I'm so sorry for everything. I didn't mean for it to happen. I stared at the screen, my heart racing. Did she really think that an apology could fix this? Did she think I would just sweep everything under the rug and pretend like nothing happened? I didn't respond. I knew it wouldn't change anything. I needed space to think, to digest what had just happened. I was supposed to be the one who was respected and loved, yet here I Was the victim of someone's betrayal. It felt unfair. I was angry, but beneath that anger there was a deep sadness that threatened to consume me. The night dragged on. I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, replaying the confrontation over and over in my mind, reliving the pain of her betrayal. I felt like I was trapped in a cycle of anger and sorrow, each feeling feeding into the other. I finally decided I needed to get out of the house to escape the memories that haunted me. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door, not really caring where I was going. I found myself at a nearby bar, one I'd gone to a few times with friends. It was dimly lit and filled with the murmur of laughter and clinking glasses. I took a seat at the bar and ordered a drink, hoping the alcohol would numb the ache in my heart. I watched the crowd, people unwinding after a long day, completely oblivious to the turmoil I was facing. As I sipped my drink, I felt a mix of anger and betrayal boiling inside me. I thought of Sarah, the intimacy we had shared, and how easily she had tossed it aside for a fleeting thrill. It made my skin crawl. I wanted to confront her again, to let her know how deeply she had hurt me, but I also knew that this was a moment to find clarity. I needed to figure out what I wanted, not just in our relationship, but for myself moving forward. After a couple of drinks, I struck up a conversation with the bartender, a friendly woman named Lisa. She had an easy smile and a genuine warmth that made me feel a little less alone. I found myself spilling my story to her, the betrayal, the heartbreak, and the confusion. It felt good to talk about it, to verbalize the pain that had been bottling inside me. "I can't believe she would do that to you," Lisa said, shaking her head. "You deserve better than that, man. No one should have to deal with infidelity." I nodded, feeling the weight of her words. I thought I knew her. I thought we had something real. Now I just feel lost. "It's okay to feel that way," she reassured me, "but you need to take care of yourself first. You can't control what she's done, but you can control how you respond to it." Her words resonated with me. I needed to stop focusing on Sarah and her deceit. I had to start thinking about my own life and what I wanted moving forward. I realized I was at a crossroads. I could either choose to let this consume me, or I could decide to reclaim my life and happiness. After spending some time talking with Lisa and sharing a few laughs, I felt a little lighter. I knew it wouldn't fix everything, but it was a step in the right direction. I decided I wouldn't let the betrayal define me. I would confront Sarah, but on my terms, not hers. I wouldn't let her manipulate the narrative or play the victim. When I finally returned home, I found Sarah waiting for me, her eyes red and puffy from crying. She looked vulnerable, but I couldn't let that sway me. I had made a decision. I was not going to let her charm or tears change the reality of what she had done. "Jake, I've been waiting for you," she said softly, her voice trembling. "Can we talk?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the emotions that threatened to resurface. "Yeah, we can talk, but understand this, Sarah. I need you to be completely honest with me. No more lies." Her eyes widened and I could see her hesitation. "I swear I will tell you everything. Just please, I need you to listen." I nodded, preparing myself for whatever was coming next. I would give her the opportunity to speak, but I wouldn't let it affect my resolve. I had been hurt too deeply. I wouldn't let myself get swept away in another round of empty promises. "Let's sit down," I said, gesturing toward the couch. I needed to hear her out, but I also needed to make it clear that this wouldn't be a conversation where she could easily manipulate me. This was about me reclaiming my power, and I was determined to walk away with clarity, no matter how painful it would be. As we sat down, I could feel the tension in the air. We both knew this conversation would change everything. And while I was scared of what lay ahead, I was ready to face it head on. I deserved honesty and I was prepared to fight for it. As we settled on the couch, the air felt thick with tension, almost suffocating. I turned to Sarah, searching her face for any signs of sincerity. "Let's start from the beginning," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "How long has this been going on?" She took a deep breath and I could see the conflict written all over her face. "Jake, just tell me the truth," I interjected, my frustration bubbling to the surface. "I can handle it. I need to know how deep this goes." "Okay," she said, her voice trembling. "It started a few months ago. I didn't want to admit it at first. We were just talking and then it turned into something more." My heart sank. How many times? 3 or 4, she admitted, tears streaming down her cheeks. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean for it to happen. I was feeling lonely and neglected. I thought I could have a few harmless conversations, but then it just spiraled out of control. So you chose to cheat instead of talking. To me, I asked, incredulous. You could have come to me with your problems, but instead you went to him. I know, she cried, her hands clasping her face in despair. I was stupid, I thought I could handle it. I didn't want to hurt you, but I ended up hurting you anyway. Did you ever love him? I pressed, needing to hear her say it. No, I swear, I love you, Jake. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. I got caught up in the excitement and attention. It made me feel alive again. Alive? You're talking about a fling with my wife's cousin, Sarah. This isn't some romantic novel. My voice rose and I felt the anger boiling back up. This is my life, our life, that you threw away for a few moments of excitement. She fell silent and I could see the weight of her guilt crushing her. Her face was a mixture of regret and fear, and I felt a flicker of empathy for the woman I once loved. But that flicker quickly died as the reality of her betrayal crashed over me. Again, I need you to understand the gravity of what you've done, I said, my voice firm. This isn't just some mistake you can brush off. You've completely shattered my trust. You've shattered us. I don't know if I can forgive you. I know it's bad, she whispered, her voice breaking. But please give me a chance to make it right. I'll do anything, therapy, whatever it takes. I paused, considering her words. Could I really go back to a life where I had to question every single aspect of our relationship? Where I had to wonder if she was being truthful? I didn't know if I was ready for that. Let be real, Sarah. You've hurt me in a way that I never thought possible. Trust is earned, and right now, you've stripped away every ounce of trust I had in you. I understand, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. I can't change what I did, but I'm willing to fight for us. I'll prove to you that I can be the wife you deserve. Prove it, I scoffed. How do you plan to do that? By pretending everything's okay. By throwing apologies at me like confetti. That's not how this works. She reached out to me, her hands trembling with desperation. What do you want from me, Jake? Just tell me, I'll do anything you ask. I looked at her, a mix of anger and sorrow flooding my chest. What I want is to feel secure in my relationship, to know that I'm not just an afterthought. I want honesty, loyalty, and love. I want to feel like I can trust my partner again, but that's not something you can promise me right now. I can show you, she pleaded. I'll change, just give me the chance. I leaned back against the couch, my mind racing. The thought of trying to rebuild our relationship seemed daunting, almost impossible, but the thought of walking away from everything we had built together was equally terrifying. I don't know if I can, I said quietly. I need time to think. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand. Just know that I'm here, ready to do whatever it takes. The silence hung heavy between us, and I felt the weight of the world pressing down on my shoulders. I wanted to believe that we could fix this, but I didn't know if I was strong enough. I didn't know if I could withstand the pain of betrayal again. That night, sleep eluded me. I tossed and turned, my mind racing with thoughts of what our future could look like. I thought of the moments we shared, the laughter, the love, the plans we had. But I also thought of the hurt, the lies, the feeling of betrayal that cut deeper than anything I had ever experienced. I resolved to take some time away. I needed to clear my head and figure out what I wanted. I decided to take a short trip to my brother's place in another city just to get some perspective. I needed to think without the distractions that our home brought. Before I left, I sat down with Sarah one last time. I'm going to stay at my brother for a few days, I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. I need space to think about everything. She looked devastated, but I could see the understanding in her eyes. I'll respect that, she said quietly, but I hope you'll come back to me. I hope so too, but right now I need to figure out what's best for me. As I packed my bags, I felt a mix of sadness and hope. Would this time away help me gain clarity? Could I really consider rebuilding our relationship after everything? It was a long road ahead, and I was filled with uncertainty. But one thing was for sure. I was determined to find a way forward, even if it meant taking a few steps back first. I left that night, my heart heavy yet somehow lighter. I was on my way to seek clarity, to confront the haunting shadows of betrayal, and to reclaim my life, no matter what that would look like in the end. I was ready to face whatever came next. The drive to my brother's place was filled with a mix of emotions. The weight of betrayal still hung heavy on my heart, but there was also a flicker of hope. For the first time in days, I felt like I was taking a step toward reclaiming my life. I needed to clear my head and gain some distance from the chaos that had consumed my thoughts. When I arrived, my brother Mike greeted me with a warm smile and an open door. I stepped inside, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. "Hey man, good to see you," he said, clapping me on the back. "You look like hell, what's going on?" I took a deep breath, deciding to lay everything out. It's a long story, but basically, Sarah cheated on me. I caught her with her cousin. Mike's expression shifted from cheerful to serious in an instant. "Damn, Jake. I'm really sorry to hear that. Do you want to talk about it?" Over the next few hours, I poured out everything: the hurt, the betrayal, the anger, and my efforts to understand what had happened. Mike listened intently, offering his perspective without judgment. He reminded me that I deserved better than what Sarah had done to me. "You have to take care of yourself first, brother. Whatever decision you make sure it's about what you want, not what anyone else wants." I spent the next few days at Mike's, taking the time to process my feelings and reflect on my relationship. I realized that the hurt Sarah inflicted was deep, but I also understood that I had to face the truth of the situation. I thought about the love we once shared, the dreams we had built together, and the life we had created. But I also recognized that love alone wouldn't fix betrayal. One evening, while sitting on the porch, I had a moment of clarity. I realized I had to be honest with myself about what I wanted. I didn't want to spend my life in a relationship filled with doubt and mistrust. I deserved a partner who would cherish me, not betray me. I finally acknowledged that while I still loved Sarah, I couldn't ignore the reality of what had happened. After a few days of soul-searching, I made the decision to return home. I knew that I needed to confront Sarah again, but this time, I would be coming from a place of strength and self-awareness. I wasn't going to allow myself to be swayed by her emotions or her pleas for forgiveness. When I walked through the door of our home, the familiar surroundings felt different, haunted by memories, but also filled with the possibility of closure. Sarah was in the living room, her face lighting up when she saw me. "You're back," she exclaimed, rushing to me. "Yeah," I said, taking a moment to gather my thoughts. "We need to talk." She nodded, her expression shifting to one of apprehension. "Okay, I've missed you so much. I want to explain more. I want to fix this." I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "I've had some time to think, Sarah. And I've realized that while I still love you, I can't continue in a relationship built on lies and betrayal. You tore down the trust between us, and I don't know if I can rebuild it." Her eyes filled with tears, and she opened her mouth to respond, but I held up a hand to stop her. "I need you to hear me out. I don't want to be in a relationship where I feel I have to question your loyalty. I deserve to feel safe and secure with my partner, and right now I don't." She started to cry, and my heart ached for her pain, but I knew I had to stay strong. "I understand that you're sorry, and I believe that you regret what happened, but that doesn't change the fact that you made a choice that hurt me deeply." "I know, I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "You have to believe me. I'll do anything to show you how much I care. I can't live in a constant state of doubt, wondering if you're being faithful or if you're hiding something from me. I need to put my own well-being first now." Her face twisted in anguish, but I stood my ground. "Maybe with time we can revisit this, but for now I think it's best if we separate. I need to heal, and I can't do that while constantly being reminded of the betrayal." The weight of my words hung in the air, and I could see her processing what I was saying. It was a difficult decision, but deep down I knew it was the right one. "Please, don't walk away," she pleaded, reaching for my hand. I instinctively pulled back, feeling the distance I needed to create. "Right now, I need space to heal. I hope one day we can find a way to forgive each other, but that day isn't today." As I turned to leave the room, I felt a sense of finality. It was a hard decision, but it was one I needed to make for my own mental and emotional health. I knew it would take time to heal, but I also understood that I had taken the first step toward reclaiming my life. The days that followed were tough. I packed my things and found a new apartment, a space all my own where I could start to rebuild. I allowed myself to feel the pain, the loss, and the grief of what could have been, but I also focused on rediscovering who I was outside of that relationship. I surrounded myself with supportive friends and family, and slowly but surely I began to heal. I started exploring new hobbies, reconnecting with things I loved before Sarah and I had built our life together. I took long walks, hit the gym, and even started journaling to help process my thoughts. As time passed, I learned valuable lessons from the experience. I realized that trust is fragile, easily broken, but incredibly hard to rebuild. I learned the importance of communication in a relationship, and that it's essential to address issues before they snowball into something unmanageable. Most importantly, I learned that my worth was not tied to someone else's actions, and I deserved to be treated with love and respect. Months later, I found myself in a much better place, emotionally, mentally, and physically. I had taken the time I needed to heal, and while the scars of betrayal would always be a part of my story, they no longer defined me. I had emerged stronger, more resilient, and ready to embrace whatever the future held. I still think of Sarah, and while the memories can be bittersweet, I've come to appreciate the lessons learned. I know that one day, love will find its way back to me, but for now, I embrace my independence and the journey I have ahead. Life is a series of choices, and I choose to move forward with hope, strength, and a renewed sense of self.